Welcome, everybody, to the Neutral Zone Infraction Northwest podcast. I'm Drew, and we are going to be talking about some sports today. We're going to jump right into week 2 in the NFL, do a quick recap for you. It was bounce back week in the NFL for a lot of teams. A lot of teams that I didn't pick to win ended up coming out with victories, and a lot of teams that I did expect to bounce back did exactly that. The Carolina Panthers bounced back against the 49ers, which I thought was going to happen. There were a lot more points in that game than I thought there would be scored, just because of the way that those defenses are. But it was a slugfest for a while. But they ended up the Panthers ended up pulling out a victory there by a pretty significant margin. The San Diego Chargers just absolutely clubbed the Jaguars over the head, which I was not expecting to happen. I actually picked the Jaguars to win, but San Diego came out with a vengeance, and they scored a lot of points on the Jaguars. Arizona came back ready to play, which is no surprise from a Bruce Arians-led team. He whipped them into shape after that loss against the Patriots, and they came out to win as well. They gave a decisive victory in the game that they played. There were injuries all over the league this week. There were quarterbacks that went down. A lot of running backs went down, some of them out for the season. Jimmy Garoppolo, the Patriots' backup quarterback, went down. So they're scrounging, looking for somebody to play with. They've got a rookie, Jacoby Brissett, on their team, who I guess is expected to start Thursday night. And then they'll use Julian Edelman as their emergency backup quarterback. But things are looking pretty thin on that roster as far as quarterbacks are concerned. Adrian Peterson also went down with an injury. He's got a torn meniscus in his knee. I haven't read whether or not he's going to end up having surgery. I knew there were two opinions, one where he doesn't need surgery, one where he does. If I know Adrian Peterson, he's probably going to elect the non-surgical fastest get me back on the field option, even if it may not benefit him long term. With that being said, though, the Vikings did pull out a pretty impressive victory against the Green Bay Packers in the opening of US Bank Stadium. It was particularly impressive because Sam Bradford, in his first start with the Vikings, just absolutely dismantled them through the air. He and Stephon Diggs, it was 9 of 10 to Stephon Diggs for 182 yards and a touchdown, who, if you are a fantasy owner of Stephon Diggs, then pat yourself on the back, because that is a good pick, and I expect him to keep being good going forward. If he keeps playing like this, I'm going to start calling him Randy Moss Light, which is a pretty good distinction there for him. I thought that the Packers played pretty bad that game. Aaron Rodgers was not typical Aaron Rodgers. He threw an interception. He only completed about 56% of his passes, which is definitely not in Aaron Rodgers' form at all. They couldn't get the run going, really. They couldn't get the pass going. Their receivers just couldn't get open to save their lives. Now, that being said, those Vikings cornerbacks, they cover well. There were some stupid penalties in that game as far as pass interference and whatnot, because you can't really guard a wide receiver without getting pass interference anymore. But I thought overall they played really well. That entire defense played really well, and they scraped out the win. Now, the game that I'm not so eager to talk about, the Rams and the Seahawks. The Seahawks got beat 9-3, which it was just absolutely brutal to watch. 3 points from the offense, who only scored 12 the week before. So 15 points in the first 2 games is the franchise low for the Seattle Seahawks, which is pretty crazy, even considering we've got a hobbled Russell Wilson and an offensive line that couldn't block to save their lives. Now, I know I was talking up the offensive line last week. I didn't say they were good. I just said be nice to them. And I was having a hard time this week. I'm having a hard time right now being nice to those guys because, man, they just got absolutely destroyed. Aaron Donald was in there. He was just wrecking stuff. Robert Quinn, their entire defensive line was in the backfield, it seemed like, the entire game. There were offsides penalties. There were holding penalties. False starts all too often. And, it was looking it's looking pretty bleak for the offense right now, considering that Russell Wilson is not at 100%. If he was at 100%, I 100% think we win that game. We had a chance to win at the end. If it wasn't for the Christine Michael fumble, I think that we had a good chance driving down the field for a touchdown with an incredible pass to Lockett. But the problem is we couldn't hold a block long enough for Russell Wilson to get a pass out. His throws appear to be completely uninhibited by his injury. It's just his mobility that's in question. So when you've got one of the best defensive front seven in the NFL coming at you against a Swiss cheese offensive line, it's going to spell bad. It's going to spell hits and fumbles, which we saw all of that and more on Sunday. Now, I don't think all is lost. I don't think that in week 2 of the season we can sound the alarms quite yet. We saw this last year. We saw the same type of thing, not with the Russell Wilson injury, but with the bad offensive line and the really poor start that we had last year. I think that if we can get into the bye week 2-2, I think that would be very beneficial. So we've got the 49ers coming up, and we've got the Jets after that. I think we beat the 49ers. I'm not so sure about the Jets because they're more of the same matchup problem that you're going to have against an offensive line like ours. We really need Jermaine Ifedi back too, our guard, our first-round draft pick that was injured. Now, I don't know if we can get him back before the bye or if we want to save him, wait until after the bye week to make sure he is all the way recovered so we can piece together that offensive line and hopefully get some semblance of a block. Now, the fault doesn't fall only on the offensive line for the loss. I mean, because of the offensive line, we couldn't get a run game going. Because we couldn't get a run game going, we couldn't move the chains. Because we couldn't move the chains, we couldn't score. And because we couldn't score, we couldn't win. So you can compound it back to that, but all facets of the offense I thought played really, really, either it's okay to poor. I didn't like what I saw from really anyone on that offensive side. So that's going to bring me into my favorite, not so favorite Seahawk of the week. And I am going to start with my not so favorite Seahawk of the week, and that's going to be Gary Gilliam of the offensive line. He had the tough task, and I'm going to give him a little bit of a break here. He had the tough task of guarding Aaron Donald for a lot of that game. He got absolutely owned by him. He got completely mugged at the line of scrimmage more often than not. I didn't see him put together one decent block in the run game either, where he got any kind of decent push. Now, the 5 guys next to him, or the 4 guys next to him, didn't really help in terms of push or anything like that, but him in particular, I was watching getting absolutely destroyed at the line of scrimmage, which is no fun at all. Now, Aaron Donald is a complete monster. He is all-pro. He is one of the best in the NFL at what he does, if not the best. That being said, man, you got to block that guy. Just like once or twice, get a good block on him and make him not lick his chops every time he's lined up against you. They were in our head by the end of that game. They were in my head. They were in their head. I was like, well, I sure hope he can get it off in about 0.3 seconds because he's going to have 6 guys tackling him before the ball is snapped, which seemed true more often than not throughout that game. Now, that being said, we held them to 9 points. Now, the Rams aren't exactly a high-powered offense with Case Keenum at the helm, but our defense, I think, played really, really well. We're still right now leading the league in scoring defense. So there are definitely good parts about this team. The solid part about this team historically has been the defense, and that continues to ring true. My favorite Seahawk of the week is a particular standout player that I saw on the defense, and that's Bobby Wagner. He was flying around. He got a hit on the quarterback. It wasn't a sack, but it was a knockdown. He was in all the right places, and he's really the general of that defense back there, calling plays, things like that. So things looked good for the defense throughout. I think that Bobby Wagner looked particularly good as far as the defense itself is concerned. And that's why he is my favorite Seahawk of the week. My final thoughts on week 2 in the NFL is that definitely all is not lost. I know I mentioned this before, but in the NFC, there are only 3 teams that are 2-0. The rest of the teams are either 1-1 or 0-2. So the Seahawks are in a good place. In our division specifically, everybody's 1-1. It's all even. You might as well throw the first 2 weeks in the garbage because they don't matter. Other than we kind of know what we need to work on. We know what needs to happen going forward. And honestly, it's a lot of what we expected. The offensive line needs a little bit of work, and we need to get a little chemistry going to end up putting up the same kind of numbers that we did at the end of last year when Russell Wilson was throwing lightning bolts to Doug Baldwin for touchdown passes twice a game. So we'll just work on that a little bit. I'm not worried. I'm not pushing my panic button yet. It'll be interesting to see what we do against the 49ers at home this week. It's a very important game. We want to go 2-2 headed into the bye, and I think that'll put us in a good place going forward. So I'm going to shift gears here a little bit now into our topic of the day. And the topic of the day is not football related at all. It's baseball related. But people that like football and don't like baseball, don't leave, because this topic is for you. I'm going to tell you why you should watch baseball. A lot of what I hear from people, specifically people that like football and don't like baseball, or even vice versa a lot of the time, is that baseball is boring. Baseball is not as fun to watch as football. Now, I agree to a point. Football is definitely more exciting in a play. In a play, you've got everybody going full speed at the same time. It's often faster paced. It's noisier. Things are going crazy. It's a whole lot more physical, and it's more exciting in that case. Now, why you should watch baseball and why you should care about baseball is, other than the fact that it is America's pastime, even though people forget about that, even though NFL is ultimately more popular now, it's the most romantic sport that I think exists in the world today. Now, what I mean by romantic is there's a lot of intrigue in baseball games, a lot of one-on-one kind of in your head, mental, a lot of stuff to think about while you're watching baseball that's different in a way. It's more emotional, and that's why a lot of the times you get those lower lows, what people call those boring moments in baseball. But you also get sometimes those higher highs that can even eclipse some of the most exciting plays in football. Ultimately, with baseball, the difference is this. In order to watch baseball, you really have to care about the team that you're watching. I can turn on any football game at any time and have fun watching it because it's fun to watch. Now, if I was watching a baseball game between the Cincinnati Reds and the Miami Marlins, there's not a lot of intrigue there for me. There's not a lot of investment that I am into that game. And so ultimately it could be really boring. But when you latch onto a team, when you really love a team, for myself, it's the Seattle Mariners, obviously. But whoever it is, it's the local team, it's the team that your dad loved, whoever it is, if you lock onto that team and are with that team, you'll get some of that romantic emotion that I talk about. Now, some of you might be saying, well, Drew, that sounds girly, and what are you talking about? Romantic. It's the notion that one guy against another guy, fastest ball thrown against, I bet you can't hit this with this bat. There's 40,000 people watching. They all care about what's happening. And you hit it out of the stadium, or you strike them out to end the game. There's nothing more romantic than that. You've got to think about what you're seeing when you watch baseball a lot more than when you watch football. Here's what baseball really is. It's the guy on the mound talking in code to the guy behind the plate. They have a game plan going in. They have preparation for this game. They've had years of honing their craft, throwing the nastiest stuff, the fastest stuff, truly diversifying themselves from all the other people in the world that wanted to play this game. They are working with all that knowledge into one pitch that's going up. Across from him, you've got the guy who's worked just as hard with only himself in his head. At this moment in time, everyone else on his team is on the bench. It's just him there at the plate, looking at that pitcher, thinking, what is he going to throw me? What do I have to do? What's the situation? Do I want to bunt? Do I want to swing as hard as I can because this is the last chance that my team has to win? Now, across from him, there are 7 other guys coiled, ready, with the same amount of preparation, waiting, hoping that the ball comes their way so that they can make a play for that guy on the mound. They're all in it 100%. And in the really great baseball games, in the really great moments of baseball, all of that preparation, determination, focus is surrounded by 50,000 people watching, wondering, what's going to happen? The pitch is thrown, strike one. And then you do it again, and again, and again, until the baseball game is over. You have to care. And if you care, that's the experience that you get from Major League Baseball. From any baseball. Little League, all the way up. And that's where these people start. They start in Little League. And they don't do it for themselves. They do it for their families. And the dream that they had, that they knew they could do from the time that they were tiny. And they do it for the city that they represent. They do it because they know those people are working 8 to 5 every day, and they come to the baseball park for some escape from that reality, and they're watching, and they're waiting for something amazing to happen. They know. We know. That's what baseball is. So don't come up to me and say, Drew, how do you sit down and watch a 3.5-hour baseball game? It's so boring. I can't understand how you would do that. That's how. And that's how millions of other people feel about that game. And you know what? Now is the time that our team, the Mariners, need that kind of support more than ever. That's why it hurts so bad when they lose, because that's what we're feeling. That's the imagery that maybe we don't put into as many words all the time, but that is what we're feeling. That's why it hurts when they lose, and that's why these last 15 years have been kind of rough for Mariners fans. Now, they had an 8-game winning streak, and it's over. And now they're struggling through. As of the time I'm recording this, they've lost 1 to the Blue Jays. They play again tonight. I'll be watching that game. It'll be over by the time you guys hear this. But we have a chance. We have a chance for thousands of those moments ahead for the Mariners. We just got to keep fighting, and I love that hashtag. I love that it came from Ken Griffey Jr., great guy, perfect player, the greatest of all time, Ken Griffey Jr. And, I encourage you. Are you just getting into baseball now? Perfect. Now's the perfect time. Go Mariners. Do you get a little bit cynical like I do and are like, oh man, they're going to blow it. I can't watch this. Watch it. Because that's what you get. Go to the game. Get that atmosphere. Keep fighting and win. I'm excited for the playoffs that hopefully we are going to get to. I've got a good feeling about it. I really expect us to do good things and hopefully get to those playoffs. I'm ready. So there's a little baseball love for your topic of the day there. I got a little emotional, a little into it on that one. I'd love to talk about baseball at any time with any one of you. That being said, we're going to move on to the questions that you guys have for me. Remember, you can send your questions to Neutral Zone Infraction Northwest at gmail.com. That's Neutral Zone Infraction NW at gmail.com, and Neutral Zone NW at Neutral Zone NW on Twitter. You can send them there. Or you can comment on this video, like it, subscribe, social media stuff. So the questions that we have this week, first question that I got is, what do I think of the 25-yard touchback rule in football now? Well, this is an interesting one. They've been doing it with college football, at least for a couple years that I know of. It's in college football, at least from what I've seen, it doesn't really seem to affect it all that much. And I've noticed the same thing with pro football. They're still going to think, the people returning the ball are still going to think that they can outrun all 11 guys running full speed at them, and they're going to juke the pants off them and make it more than 25 yards. And sometimes they do, and more power to them when they do that. And a lot of times they don't. Now, I don't know at what point in strategy is it going to make more sense for a coach to say, if you take it out of the end zone, just go sit on the bench for the rest of the game. And then we see a lot more of those touchbacks to the 25-yard line. Now, that extra 5 yards might not seem like a lot, but it really is, in all honesty, a lot. When you get to the 25-yard line, it's statistics. Now, I don't know if these will change based on the touchback rule at all, that you have a greater percentage chance to make it to the red zone where you can score than if you started at the 20 or farther back. Now, what this rule is really in preparation for is what I think is going to be the ultimate elimination of the kickoff that the NFL wants to do. And once that happens, I'm sure that will trickle down. And that's in the mind of player safety, which, I'm all behind that. I think that they deserve to be safe. I think that when you get two of the fastest guys in the world who don't exactly love each other at that moment in time, running full speed at each other and then hitting each other, well, you're going to end up with some health problems maybe associated with that. So now, if they want to keep it and make it safer, and they think the 25-yard line is doing that, I'm all for that. If they want to eliminate it, okay, I can get behind that. Football will be different. It will be different, but I could ultimately get behind the removal of the kickoff because it's not the most exciting part of the game. It's not what draws crowds or people to watch on television. However, I do think that if they remove the kickoff, like it seems like their plan is to do that, I think that ultimately we will need to replace it with something, just to keep the intrigue at a lot of the ends of the games. Us as Seahawk fans know, sometimes the onside kick can be the difference between an NFC championship and not. So I think that you're going to have to replace it with something that can mirror the intrigue of that to keep hope alive for teams that are wanting to really take that low percentage play to hopefully stay in the game like the onside kick is now. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I don't have any great ideas for that. It's not my job to have great ideas for that. So that one's on you, NFL, if you decide to take that away. But if you do end up taking the kickoff away, you have to replace it with something that has to be in place. It has to be tested, please. And it's got to not change the entire fundamental meta, basically, of the game. It can't change the overarching strategy to football too much, or else everything's going to blow up, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't like it when I don't know what's going to happen, so fix it, test it, keep it, whatever. I haven't noticed that much of a difference with the 25-yard line this year because people still keep trying to take it out. All I got to say is if you're a Seahawk, Tyler Lockett, if you take it out and you don't make it to the 25, buddy, take a knee and stay alive to catch footballs. That would be excellent. Second question of the day, who is the most underappreciated Seahawk and why? Well, this is one of my favorite ones to answer because I'm going to pick the least glamorous position in football. Well, maybe the offensive line is the least glamorous, but this one's pretty unglamorous as well, and that's the punter. Most underappreciated Seahawk, at least from my point of view, is John Ryan. You don't know that you don't have a good punter until you need one, until you need a good punter. Field position is so much of how the Seahawks play. They play with their defense to suffocate you to ultimately get that field position where they can score. Now, you might say that that's every team, and I'd agree. Everyone is going to be a lot better football team if they've got a good punter, somebody who can both kick it one heck of a long ways and are accurate enough with it in close yardage situations to pin that other team deep, to really pin their ears back and really get them on their heels, which I think John Ryan does really well. He's one of the longest punters in the league, which is excellent. And it's actually a position where the Seahawks have elected to spend a little money because John Ryan's not inexpensive in terms of punters. But I'm glad that they have him. I'm glad that they have Hauschka there to do those kicking jobs because just like a kicker, like a place kicker like Steven Hauschka, you will notice if you don't have a good punter. I don't know if any of you are watching Monday Night Football, but I saw some atrocious punts, like net 30 yards, like might as well have thrown the ball as far as I can and seen what happens. So that's my most underappreciated Seahawk. I think John Ryan is it. And he's completely jacked, like the most jacked Canadian I've ever seen. Now, if you guys have pictures of a more jacked Canadian, like a pro wrestler or something, I'd like to see it because I'm pretty sure John Ryan is more jacked. And he was on American Ninja Warrior a couple seasons ago, which I think is awesome. That obstacle course show where they run around. He didn't make it very far, but I thought it was awesome. He called himself the Jinja Ninja because of his red hair, which is hilarious. John Ryan, most underappreciated Seahawk. Appreciate him. Appreciate his booming kicks. Appreciate his accurate kicks. He is the most underappreciated Seahawk. All right, it's time to get to my favorite part of the show. This is the part of the show where I pick games that haven't happened yet. So definitely going to do that. I also told you last week that I'm going to hold myself accountable to how well I picked games the previous week, and I'm even going to keep a lifetime tally as well, just for fun. Last week I went 10-6. I picked 10 correctly, 6 incorrectly. A lot of those comeback teams that I talked about really did me in that one. Raiders, Jags didn't do well. Houston ended up beating Kansas City. You know, those are the big ones that I was pretty strong on that didn't end up going my way. That being said, if you use my picks to gamble in any way, that's pretty foolish or not foolish because I am the oracle that sits here in this chair and knows exactly what's going to happen. I'm just playing with your mind at this point. With that being said, let's get to this week's picks. Thursday night, we've got Texans at Patriots. Now, I really hope the Patriots lose. Like, I need them to lose just for my psyche. Like, if they win with two different starting quarterbacks that aren't even their starting quarterback in the preseason, I'll start to wonder if they're even possible to beat, which they are, and we will, week 11. Or whenever we play them. I think it's week 11. But this week, they're playing the Texans. Texans are coming to Foxborough. They're going to play their rookie quarterback, and I assume they're going to run the ball a lot. But the Texans' defense is no slouch. I mean, when you got the best defensive player ever on your team, it's pretty good chance you might have a good defense. So Texans have good defense. I really like Bill O'Brien. I like what he does. I like his demeanor. And they haven't given me any reason to not like them. They're both 2-0 teams headed against each other. I'm going to pick the Texans to win this game just because I don't want the Patriots to lose. And I don't want to cheer for them in any way whatsoever. So, Texans to win at Foxborough on Thursday night. Next game we got is Ravens at Jags. I still like the Jaguars, even after that beating that they took from the San Diego Chargers. I still think they're a good team. They're a young team. They're a young team who's still finding their feet. They're going to be good because I thought they'd be good, and and what I think is right. So I'm picking the Jaguars to win this one. Plus the Ravens, even though they're 2-0, haven't impressed me. They went down 20-0 against the Browns, and then the Browns hilariously blew up, and Josh McCown hurt his shoulder, which is no fun. And then they ended up losing to the Ravens after a 20-point lead, which is pretty crazy. But I don't really like the Ravens that much. I think they're okay. I don't think they're great. I don't think the Jaguars are great either, but I like the Jaguars, so I'm picking the Jaguars to win. Next game, we've got Redskins at Giants. Now the Giants are 2-0, and they're looking pretty good. And on the flip side of that, we've got Kirk Cousins looking pretty bad. So, this one I think is pretty easy for me, especially because the Giants are at home. Now, it is a divisional matchup, so anything can and will happen. Josh Norman's playing pretty well, even though I still think he's overrated. I don't know how, I just do it. That thought came into my mind one day, so I'm like, oh man, he's overrated. And so, but I still like the Giants here, 2-0, playing at home. I'm picking the Giants in this one. Lions at Packers. Now, the Lions let me down. The Lions let me down last week. And I'm pretty sure that they haven't won in Lambeau in about 250 years since the dawn of creation. And I don't think that's likely to change. I doubt the Packers drop 2 in a row, although they have some significant issues. Yeah, it's so hard to win in Lambeau Field. It's better now because it's not negative quadrillion degrees outside. But still pretty hard to win in that atmosphere against still probably the best quarterback in the league right now, Aaron Rodgers. So I'm picking the Packers here to win. I just don't think the Lions get it done. Browns at Dolphins. Man, the Browns are just they're going through quarterbacks like it's nobody's business, and they don't have anybody. Josh McCown went down with an injury. RG3's on the injured reserve. Rookie Cody Kessler is set to start this game. And reports out of Cleveland is he's not ready to play. Just completely not ready to play. So if the Browns, who will trot out anybody who can throw a football and call him their starting quarterback, they say he's not ready, man, it's not going to be good in Cleveland. It's just not. The Dolphins, I don't think are excellent. They've had two of about the toughest matchups that you can get at Seahawks and at Patriots. Like who picked that schedule for them? That sucks. But they're going to be a little better here because they're going to be at home and it's against the Browns. So it's like fighting Mike Tyson and then fighting a toddler. So in the second round, these Dolphins will be doing all right. So Dolphins, definitely Dolphins. Vikings at Panthers. This one's hard. This one's hard for a couple of reasons. These two teams are in what I consider the upper echelon of the NFC. The Vikings have been surprising without Teddy Bridgewater, who wasn't the strength of their team. It's not like if Russell Wilson went out for the season. Well, it's closer to that than if, say, Tom Brady went out for the whole year. So, because defensive teams, and their defense is their strength. The Vikings' defense is definitely their strength. But Sam Bradford and Stephon Diggs, like I talked about a little bit earlier, they looked really good. That being said, you're going to Charlotte and the defending NFC champs. So, and not a ton of stuff changed in that team. Jonathan Stewart was one of the running backs that went down for the Panthers, but Adrian Peterson went down for the Vikings. But Adrian Peterson really wasn't getting much done because of that offensive line before he went down. So this one is a complete toss-up, and because I don't know, I'm going with the home team because that's generally a safe bet. So I'm going to go with the Panthers to win. Now, that being said, the Vikings could very well prove me wrong. Absolutely possible. This one I just don't know. Picking the Panthers. Next game is Broncos at Bengals. Now, the Broncos have looked really good. They've looked solid. Trevor Siemian at quarterback is doing enough to win. And their defense it's suffocating. It's the worst to play. I wouldn't want to play their defense. Their defense scores a lot of points. But I just for the Bengals in the day at home, I think that's going to be enough to win. Now I say the day because we got daytime Dalton, Andy Dalton, who doesn't like to play in prime time, plays so much better in the day. So I think the Bengals are going to win this one. The Broncos look good, but I think that traveling away from home is going to be a little bit harder for them. And I like what I've seen from the Bengals so far. They've looked good too. So I'm picking the Bengals to win here against the Broncos. All right, the next game on my list is Cardinals at Bills. Now, the Bills didn't look great Thursday night against the Jets. It was a closer game than I thought it would be, but that was just because of about 4 plays. 4 plays that the Bills ended up playing really well on, whether it was a deep pass or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. That's what kept the Bills ultimately in that game, even though it really wasn't as close as the scoreboard showed. Now the Cardinals, they've snapped out of whatever funk they were in. The first game of the season against the Patriots, Bruce Arians got them in ready to go, ready to play. They put up some numbers in week 2. I think the Cardinals will go into Buffalo and win. I think Rex Ryan's chair is just going to get hotter and hotter each loss he takes. I think it's going to be. He might make it through the season. We'll see. But I don't think that they're a playoff team. And if they're not a playoff team, I don't think he keeps his job. And he said that this is going to be his last job in the NFL. So we might have a Rex Ryan-less team or NFL. So, which is going to be strange because he's been in the league for a long time, and he's one of the more entertaining coaches to watch. So, but I still think that the Cardinals are going to go into Buffalo and beat the Bills. Raiders at Titans. I still like the Raiders, just like I still like the Jags. These young teams, these full of hype teams. I'm all about that. I'm all about young, hype-filled teams. I'm all about the hype. I love hype videos, hype music, high fives, which are basically like a hype video for meeting a person. So, all that stuff. I love that. Raiders at Titans. I mean, the Titans ended up squeaking out a win against the Lions, but that doesn't impress me that much. I like the Raiders here at Tennessee. I think that they'll bounce back from their Week 2 loss. Rams at the Bucks. Now, I don't think the Rams are that good. We make them look awesome because they match up so well against us as Seahawks. But I don't think that they're that good. Their offense still looked atrocious. They couldn't score a touchdown either. The LA Rams haven't scored a touchdown since 1994. That's a joke that I love and one that I saw on the internet, of course. So I think that the Bucks are going to win here. I think that even though the Arizona Cardinals just beat the tar out of them this last week, I think they're another one of those teams that are younger and prone to bounce back after these tough losses. Now, I think Jameis Winston threw 4 interceptions against the Cardinals, but he's not going to have as hard of a time with the secondary of the Rams as he is with the Cardinals, who have got some real studs in that secondary. Now, the front seven might still give him some problems because they're really good, but I honestly don't know if that offense can score any points. The offense of the Rams, if they can score touchdowns or field goals or what they're going to score. It'll be interesting to see. But I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to end up winning that game. Next game of the week, Niners at Hawks. Now, I'm excited for this game for a number of reasons. Niners at Hawks is always fun. It's really fun because we're going to win. They don't match up against us. I mean, it's a little scarier because Russell Wilson is injured and we've got the question marks on the offensive line, but we're at home. We're just, if we lose this game, I'm going to hit my panic button. I'm going to hit it hard. I'm going to hit it several times and maybe cry just a little bit. I think that the Hawks are definitely going to win. You might not hear me pick against the Hawks this whole year, which is sort of the point of this podcast. But definitely Hawks win. It'll be interesting to see Chip Kelly in Seattle, see how he does, see how that team does, and should be a good game. Hopefully, a less stressful game than the first two games of the season for the Hawks. Definitely, the Hawks are going to win though, for sure, 100%. You heard it here first. Hawks win. Next game is Steelers at Eagles. Now, the Eagles look good. Carson Wentz is legitimate. I was watching him last night on Monday Night Football, and he was making the throws. He was taking too many hits, but showing a lot of toughness, standing in the pocket, willing to take the hits, willing to drive for the first down, willing to do all these things, leading at the line of scrimmage. Now, they have him in one of the most vanilla-ish offenses I've ever seen. Like, it's dink and dunk parade over there with 5-yard passes and jet sweep and all that garbage. But you know what? If that's what's moving him down the field, if that's what's working for him, then I think that's a good system for him to be in. I think, again, he's making the Rams look silly because they picked Jared Goff and Carson Wentz was just a clearly inferior quarterback, which I don't see it. But again, we haven't seen Jared Goff play because he's on the sidelines. That being said, the Steelers have too many weapons. They're just a higher class team. They're a better team. And I think Carson Wentz is going to get his first loss in the NFL this week, get a first taste of that sweet defeat. Next game is Jets at Chiefs. This is a hard one. This is a couple good defenses against each other here. Couple of what people would call game manager quarterbacks. They each make some plays, Alex Smith and Ryan Fitzpatrick. But either one's not going to win a game for your team. Most likely, Ryan Fitzpatrick cut off his Civil War general beard, which just totally disheartens me. I love that beard. I wanted him to keep it, but he cut it off, which is sad, which is why I'm picking the Chiefs to win at home. Rip beard. All right, next game we've got Chargers at Colts. Now, the Chargers look good against the Jaguars. They put up a lot of points. I think they were pretty pissed off at their 23-point loss deficit overcoming of the Chiefs the week before, and I think it showed in their play a little bit. And the Colts, they couldn't handle the Broncos. But I think the Colts bounce back here at home. I think that they're probably the better team still. Danny Woodhead went down for the Chargers, and he's honestly a big part of what that offense can do. I saw that they picked up Dexter McCluster, which is a fun name to say, who's basically the same kind of thing that Danny Woodhead is, small guy, versatile, can catch, can run, that kind of stuff. It'll be interesting to see this one. I think the Colts are going to end up winning. I really don't have any strong feelings either way. All right, so Sunday Night Football, we've got Bears at Cowboys. Woohoo. I mean, Jay Cutler went down, so we get the Brian Hoyer experience, who I feel like has been on Sunday Night Football more than he should be. But on the other side, we've got Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, and this is at AT&T. At that big Cowboy stadium there. I think the Cowboys are going to end up winning this one. I think they are marginally more talented. I thought the Bears' offense looked pretty poor, and I thought their defense looked pretty poor. Not a lot of redeeming qualities in the Chicago Bears these days. They play in a tough division. I don't see them going very far. John Fox had his day. I don't think that team is going to do very much. Cowboys aren't much better, but I think they are better, so I'm picking the Cowboys to win. Last game of Week 3, Monday Night Football, Falcons at Saints. I simply cannot pick against the Saints at home, unless, of course, it's just an absolute world eater going in there to beat them. I think that they are going to end up beating the Falcons. It's a divisional matchup, so it should be fun. You've seen a lot of fun stuff in the past from Falcons-Saints matchups, some shootouts, some defensive contests, mostly shootouts. Julio Jones versus whoever Drew Brees is throwing to, Brandon Cooks. So it should be a lot of fun there for them. I expect a high-scoring game in this one, but I think that the Saints are going to end up winning in that divisional matchup. So those are my picks for this week. That's been your podcast for this week. If you have questions, you can send them to neutralzoneinfractionnw@gmail.com. Send them to @neutralzonenw on Twitter. You can comment on this video, like, subscribe, share, love, tell your friends, tell your relatives, high five me if you see me. Love high fives like a hype video. And let me know what you think. Let me know your comments. Let me know your suggestions. Love to hear from you. Want to make the podcast better for you guys. Thanks for listening. See you next week.